Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Roar Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Laura Sturm.
Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Laura Sturm.
And I'm Josh Rohr. This is episode 78. And it is, fun fact, this episode goes live on 2/2/22. In case anybody cares. I thought it's interesting. I thought it's cool. Moving on. So we are being joined today by Cindi Jaeger. She is one of our lifters on Team Roar, and she just had a meet this weekend. Cindi, how you doing?
Doing good. How are you guys doing tonight?
Fantastic. So one thing that I wanted to talk about tonight is kind of a somewhat sensitive subject for people, and I think it's important to talk about, and that is how to deal with having a meet that didn't meet your expectations, I guess. So I guess as for reference, Cindi, we're putting you on the spot here, but it is what it is. So you just had a meet, the Wisconsin State, and you went 4 for 9. Did not hit any PRs on any of your lifts, correct? You tied your PR
correct.
Deadlift. Did you know that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I did know that.
Okay, I didn't know if you knew that or not. And your total was under your PR total. And our initial conversation we had the other day was that you were very disappointed in yourself and you felt like you let people down. And I kind of want you to speak on that a little bit so we can dive in and talk in more detail.
So, yeah, it was very much a rough meet. Totally was not prepared to not make lifts. I mean, I know it's going to happen, but to go 4 for 9, never in my year, I would have never imagined that it would have gone that way, especially walking into the meet. I felt really good. And then to come out and knowing that there were people on the team that were watching, because I was getting some messages during the meet that they were on and watching and kind of cheering me on. As much as it was great to have that come through during the meet and be encouraging, it was also really hard because I knew there were people that were there to watch me, and I felt like I was letting them down. Felt really bad, like I was letting you down as my coach, because we prepared for it, we talked about it, and then to basically be standing on the platform and not able to perform to what I knew I could do, it just was not a great feeling. It was really, the narrative that was going on in my head was brutal.
Yeah. And so that's one thing, when we were talking the other day, you said that there was somebody else that was lifting with you that was kind of having a bad day too, but you jumped into coach mode and kind of cheered them on and pushed them along. And I find that ironic a little bit, because as a coach, like, you knew what to say and do, but as the lifter, you're like, I don't want to effing hear it. It's kind of the thought process there. And I think that's a real thing that, I mean, myself have been there. So like when you were upset and we were having that conversation, like I totally could relate to what you were feeling, like F it, this is stupid. I'm blah, 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 but stepping back and looking at the big picture, like this is, there are a lot of factors going on here. One, this is the first time you ever cut weight for a meet, right? So, that played a role. You did just have surgery not too long ago, and we're still, getting back to that point. There's a lot of different factors. I mean, I wasn't with you to help handle you, which, that's probably the only reason that it didn't go perfectly right. That's
totally.
Yeah. So,
You were getting blamed. I was blaming you a lot.
and that's fine.
That
You're allowed
as part
to.
of the narrative in my head.
Yeah. But I think, and all that's fine. Like, I think that in the moment, it's easy to get caught up in all those things. And, if you need to create a villain, I guess, in the moment to push you through, then let that be me. That's fine. But I think it's important to, now that, a week has passed, to kind of reflect on the whole thing and see the bigger picture. And, one thing we talked about too is, you do this long enough, you're going to have another meet that doesn't live up to your expectations. And I guess I would even say, had you gone 9 for 9 and hit all PRs and they were easy, would you be disappointed that you didn't go heavier? So I think there's always that, when we're really competitive and really want to push ourselves to be the very best, I think there's always a certain level of not good enough, but I think that's okay as long as you can step back and see the big picture of how far you've come and take lessons away from it. And that's one thing that, just as an example, I mean, looking at your past couple of meets. So like, how long have you been training with us? We're on like 2
they'll be going on
3
2 years, 3 years, 2
2,
years,
something like that.
3.
So anyway, I only bring that up
2
is
or
to
3.
say 2 or 3, yeah, something like that.
Something like that.
So this is the third meet that you've done with us as your coaches. And the first 2 you did, you went 9 for 9 and hit PRs and PR total in both of those. And that's great. Like, obviously we celebrate that, but I think it almost becomes the expectation that that's always going to be the case, and it's just, the reality is it's not always the case. So I think it's important just to, I guess, going back to the feeling of letting people down. Like, I think it's important to say, like, the only way we would really, like, your teammates or your coaches would really be disappointed is if you literally just like gave up on yourself and didn't try. Like, if you bombed out if you went 0 for 9, like, but gave it an effort, like, we would be proud of that. And I think I speak for the rest of the team on that too. And the reason we're having this conversation is because I've had this exact conversation with so many other lifters when they had a bad meet, or a meet that they just felt was a letdown for them, or they didn't live up to the expectations or whatever. And it's something that I think we need to discuss more, because it's really not something that is a big abnormality. It's not that abnormal.
Wow.
Like, there's going to be bad meets, and not every, like, we see people posting, like, when they do great things and they have a PR day or they go 9 for 9, we see those, but rarely do we see people post, oh, I had a a bad day, I bombed out or whatever. And I think it just conditions us to think that if we have one of those days, then we are less than, and that's really not the case. Cindi, thoughts?
No, it's a lot of what we talked about. So, we didn't talk immediately after the meet, outside of, just that I was getting on and training, that Monday night. And then when you and I talked on Wednesday, we'd even said, I wasn't ready to hear it. I wasn't ready to listen to you or have a conversation with you right away after the meet. It just, it needed to sit and have an opportunity to go back and to look at it. And that was a lot of what we talked about. When you see people on the team, we don't always see each other's bad days of training. I mean, a couple of us we do, because we train enough together and you see those days. But then when you're at meets and stuff like that, I mean, it is to do your best performance. We don't always see when people bomb out. We don't talk about it. We don't share those outside of, just unless you're in that training group. Everything we post on Instagram, exactly what you said. It's all the great lifts. It's all the good lifts. It wasn't until actually that we sat and talked, and even a couple of days afterwards, that I could look back and walk away with, okay, yeah, it wasn't my best meet. I didn't do my best lift, But what I came out of it with was I didn't give up. I continued to talk myself into, okay, it's a new set of lifts. Just let the old ones go, keep moving forward. Kept, your words of encouragement that we train with and everything else in the back of my head. And what I think you always make the comment during training, oh shucks, you're getting stronger. That's a bad thing. When I go back and look at that total, yeah, it wasn't my greatest total, but it was still a better total than I had before I had started training with you. So there's a lot of good to take out of it, but in the moment, there was no way I could see it, and I wasn't ready to see it. Yeah. So yeah, that's where now the coach part comes out, and you talk about giving yourself grace. We're all too competitive, and we're harder on ourselves probably than what anyone else are. But that feeling of letdown of the team, and even to the letdown of you, still not 100% over that one.
Yeah, and I want to talk about that.
We'll get
more.
there eventually one day.
I want to talk about that more because, and this is some, I guess, pointing the finger at me a little bit. So is that something? And we're having a real conversation. Like, this isn't really scripted. We're just kind of flying off the cuff here. So is that something that I say or do that gives you that impression that you have to live up to a certain standard, or is that something that you come up with yourself?
I think that's self-imposed. I look at it as, for me, I have a lot of respect for you as my coach. I have a lot of respect for the team. They are an amazing group of people and so encouraging and everything else. So when I don't feel like I performed at my best, and I didn't, I did what I could, and my body just wasn't there for me that day. To me, it's just, I feel like I let you, I don't know how to explain it. It's so hard. But yeah, I still just feel like I let you down because I couldn't do what you had expected me to do. Maybe that's the easiest way to put it. And it's not because of anything that you've ever said or anything like that. It's just, we've worked so hard together to do something, and I couldn't do it. That day, it just wasn't in the books for me.
I think expect is a very strong word. So when we put together your numbers, like, those were numbers that I felt you were capable of doing. Those were not numbers that were put on the paper saying do this or don't come back. Like, and I think that's how you interpret it a little bit. And I really want to make sure that we are definitely talking about that now for everybody to hear, because that is not, when we put training numbers together, like, there is no disappointment if you miss a lift. And I really want that, I guess, burden to be lifted from people, because like I want you to do this for you, and I want you to push yourself and chase PRs and all of those things for you, not to please me or to check off a box that it lives up to the team standard or any of that. No, I think that is just unnecessary stress that is not helpful, I guess, to be blunt. Laura, you can chime in.
No,
and
Well, I mean, I think as lifters, we're very, very competitive. And like you said, Cindi, we're our own worst enemies. Oh gosh, I don't think I think there's like 2 meets I did out of, all the whole time I competed, where I was like, that was perfect. That went just like I kind of planned it. And most of the time I was so like, that wasn't the meet I expected. And I was mad. I was mad at myself. I was mad at whatever, right? And it's heartbreaking when it's in you, but it's just not in you that day for whatever reason. Like, and it could be a time where you're not cutting weight. It could be a time where everything's just completely on point, and just that day, it's a slice of time. But you're right, we don't give ourselves a break. And I think some of it's like society bred, like everything in our society, especially as Americans, we're very achievement oriented. we're very outcome oriented. We're not a super process oriented society. And, I think that gets bred in us a little bit through just our upbringing and and then social media doesn't help. Look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. It's all outcome based, and it's when the back of the t-shirt says, trust the process, it's really about the process. But yet it's easy to say, but hard to do.
It is.
And
And
it's
it's
hard
easier.
to feel it right here too. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And in fairness, like you're exactly right. Like I can sit here and say all these things as the coach looking at it from the outside in, like, but when I'm the lifter that has a bad meet or whatever, don't talk to me, so pot meet the kettle or whatever they say.
Yeah.
But it's true. I do think that's something, that needs to be discussed more and needs to be, I guess, worked on from a mental standpoint. Like we talk about, lifting is such a mental sport and we, work on our mental approach and visualizing and all that, but that's all fine and good. And that's important. But what do you do mentally when you do miss a lift and have to come back and try it again? Or you miss 2 of your squats and now you're going into bench press with a bad attitude. Like those are the other side of the coin of being able to be mentally strong and hit the reset button and come back and give your best effort. And I think, the more we can normalize, I shouldn't say normalize, I guess the more we can devalue having a bad meet, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to say it or not, but we put the result on a pedestal and we live or die by the result. And I think if we can, become more process oriented and, take lessons from the meets that we do, good or bad, and look at it objectively that way. Again, easier said than done, but I think it's something that we should, I think we need to have more of those conversations, probably, as an entire team, because I've literally had this exact conversation with, hell, Laura, I've probably had this with you multiple times.
Yep.
And you've won the world championships multiple times, right? So on the surface, people think, oh, well, that's Laura. She's at a different level. Okay, she competes at that high level, but you've bombed out. I hate to say on your, put you on the spot here. You've bombed out before, but that didn't define you. That there was lessons learned there. So I just think
I cried like a baby. I did too. I cried like a baby in the moment.
I did too when I bombed out. I bombed out once, knock on wood. Hopefully that's the only time. But like those emotions are real. Like I think to pretend that you don't feel them is that's not doing right by yourself either. So, I don't know how many I don't know how many people that I coach that I've literally had to like be on the phone with and they just break down crying and it is what it is. Like, I hate to say it, you're not unique in that situation. Like that is a very real thing. And that's why I wanted to just have this talk, is because I think people, when they feel those things or they feel the disappointment, they're like, well, I shouldn't feel this, or, I shouldn't let people know that I feel this way or whatever. And that's what it is, man. It's real. It's there. Like, let it out, man.
Right. And it's still part of the long game, right? Like we're still looking to trend upward over time, and any one meet doesn't matter that much.
Yeah. Like, and if you look at, for the most part, if you look at results over time, like it does trend upward but it's not a direct straight line. There's ups and downs, but it trends up over time. And that's the thing we got to keep in perspective is, one meet that your total falls off. It's not like, oh, well, let's scrap everything. I'm getting weaker now. That's not the reality. So.
Yeah, but it does.
But that is the narrative that goes through your head.
Yeah, I agree. It's the narrative that goes through your head. And I think it's because we don't talk about it enough. And what else are you to think, I guess, in those moments when training's been going good. Like everything's been, not always great, but you feel pretty good coming in, you're confident, and then things don't go as planned. How else do you think, or what else could you be thinking, other than, oh, it's the end of the world. Right. So trying to reshape that thought process a little bit for, because let's be honest, you're going to have another bad meet at some point. Like you do this long enough, you're going to have another bad meet. So, I'm not throwing that out there for bad juju or anything, but that's just the reality. I mean, you do this long enough, you're going to have another bad meet. Well, how are you going to deal with it then? So that's all I have to say about that.
But you had commented about the fact that you had lifters cry and everything else. I think that whole night that you and I talked, I think we hit every emotion. It's almost like the grieving process, kind of going through it, because there was anger. We went through that, because I think I called you possibly a couple names several times.
Just in case you're not sure, yes, you did. You called me names.
There were tears, but by the end, we were also laughing and joking around and everything else. I mean, you truly hit every emotion in going through that. And I think, Laura hit it on the head when she's like, we set expectations so high for ourselves. So when we ourselves don't meet them, we're the hardest on ourselves. And how do you sometimes come through all of those? A lot of us are just used to bottling it up and just walking away, because you don't see people cry and stuff like that. But yeah, there were a lot of tears at that meet, because there was, like I said, the one lifter I was kind of helping, a friend of mine, through it. She was crying. I mean, she was crying worse than what I was. So I'm like, okay, I can just focus on her, and then I can just deal with my stuff later. So.
Yeah, emotions are tough, man. Like they're hard to deal with sometimes, but I think the more we can normalize them, I guess the more comfortable we are having them, for one, but I guess figuring out what to do with them too. So, fast forward, we're a week post now. Like, I guess, how are you feeling about the meet now? And if you still have angry feelings towards me, still feel free to let them fly. At least people will be entertained.
Let's see. No, because you'd probably have to bleep out a lot, and I won't do that to you.
Oh no, we mark our podcast online as explicit, so you can let it fly.
No, I'm not. I'm not. Well, you made me squat tonight, so yeah, I kind of am still pissed off at you. But no, looking back at it, I mean, we talked quite a bit about probably where I tripped up in preparing for it and being ready for it. There were a lot of factors that we probably didn't look at, and we probably didn't talk enough about some of those going into the meet. Some things I probably should have told you, and I didn't until afterwards. And then that's when, you kind of yelled at me. But overall, I mean, I'm more determined now because I'm pissed off at myself that I didn't do what I know I could do. Now there's a deadlift goal that I have, because I know I can do it. I'm confident I can probably do it. And now I've got something to prove to myself, that at a lower weight, I can still hit those numbers, and there's still more to gain.
Yep. No, I agree. I think that's a good outlook. Like, yeah, you can be pissed off as long as you're using it like for motivation, and not as like, not using it to beat yourself up, I guess. Those are two very different things. And I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm not sure I like the pissed off, I guess, definition either. But I guess the way you explained it, I don't know if it's so much pissed off, or if it's a motivation to kind of prove that you can do more than you did, or,
Mhm.
so, and I'm okay with that. I just think that, I think that, yeah, getting back to focusing on the process and looking at how far you have come. I think that's one thing that a lot of people lose sight of is, well, last week I did this week, how come I can't do this? Well, what were you doing last year? What were you doing 5 years ago? Like, look at how far you've come. Because even if you look at, we talked about training, trending upwards in terms of numbers, but it is a step that's up and down. Well, think of it that way, weeks, even months, sometimes like you're going to trend up and down, but over time you should, so any one, any one day workout week is not going to define you as a lifter. So good or bad. And I think that's
Mhm.
important to recognize too. Like if you have just a lights out week and it's the best week you've ever had training, that's great. But to make that your new standard where every week has to be like that is setting yourself up for failure and disappointment too. So kind of riding the highs and riding the riding the highs and I don't know. There's a cool saying in there somewhere.
I'll believe you.
Yeah,
Not cool, Josh.
I know. I really need to finish my thoughts before I start speaking. It's on my to-do list.
Nice.
So yeah, but I guess any other thoughts, or I guess just in general about training, meet, team atmosphere, stuff like that? I have one more thing I'm going to say, but I want to ask you your thoughts first.
I guess the only thing I would say would be going from when I started competing, I wasn't with the team. I think we kind of talked, I kind of cyber stalked you for a while after I met you, getting my coach's certificate and everything. Because the coach that I had was a good coach, just not a good powerlifting coach. So completely different change in atmosphere, joining a team. It is harder being as remote as what I am from the majority of the team. But the best thing that being part of this team has brought was the little things like that happened that day. Getting the messages from people on the team, having the conversations with the group that I train with virtually, that Monday night, their words of encouragement were huge. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful to have you as a coach, but I'm even more grateful to have the backing of the team, to be there in the good and in the bad, because quite a few of them have been through it. So knowing that they've been there and just hearing those words coming through in that moment meant the world.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep. I agree. And I think that's the thing, like that I do love about having our team is like everybody really is supportive of everybody. And I think that's what makes it even harder to hear. Like when you said you're afraid to disappoint the team, afraid to disappoint the coaches, that is, as a coach, like as a coach you're talking about, like that's very hard to hear, because that almost makes me feel like I gave you unrealistic expectations or something like that. And again, completely can relate as a lifter, right? But looking at it from the other side, and I think that, you said a couple people messaged you from the team that were watching the live stream. Well, you told me who those people were. I'm not going to mention them because they're not here to defend themselves. but no, everybody that messaged you has had a bad meet. So like they know exactly what you're feeling, and they obviously, again, looking at it objectively, they obviously care and are invested in you as a person, not how you do at a meet. And I think that's the big distinction to make there is, it's, whether they send you supportive messages or not, is not dependent on how you perform.
Mm-hmm.
So
no, and I get that. Having them was just, like I said, it was a blessing. Even though I didn't quite see it in the moment. Looking back at it now, it was great to have that. And the conversations even afterwards weren't about the lifting.
Yeah.
You know, so to your point, it's not about Cindi as the lifter, it's Cindi as the person.
Yeah.
I like that. And I think that's kind of what we have to avoid, is that trap of like defining ourselves by what we do, and defining ourselves by achievements, and, just making our identity tie into those things. Like it's dependent, and it's just, that's not who we are.
Yeah.
It brings out parts of you, the whole sport aspect will bring out part of a different part of ourselves, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But once you start hanging all of your identity on those achievements, that's when, I've been there. It's bad. It's when that starts, when that fades away, you're just left like, oh my gosh, who am I?
Yeah. And, even the joy you get out of training becomes a job. I mean,
Mhm.
then, getting feedback from a coach or a teammate feels like criticism, and, just all of those things snowball.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Enjoy it.
yeah, enjoy
That's
it.
really what we're here for.
It's that
Right.
simple. Just enjoy it.
Yeah. Easy said.
I'll enjoy everything but splats.
Yeah. Well, we'll get there. Anyway,
Nice.
so I do want to just say, Cindi, like, I do really appreciate you coming on and having this conversation, because I know this is not the norm, and if somebody asked me to come on and talk about a meet that I felt was not my best, like, I'd be like, hell no, I ain't doing that. But I do think it's important, and I really do appreciate you kind of putting yourself out there, and I do think this is going to help a lot of people, because, like we said earlier, like, you see the good meets and everything on social media. People rarely post about meets that don't go the best, and and looking at it objectively, like, I still don't even say this is a bad meet that you had. It was not as good as the previous two that you had, but looking back at your results from previous meets, like you said, it's still your third best total ever, on a 4 for 9 day. So while you didn't make as many attempts as you wanted, like, the strength level was still, it's still looking at, point A to point B, you've still come a long way, even if that is, yeah, whatever. You know where I'm trying to go there. I'm trying not to get too sentimental. But for real, like,
Oh, heaven forbid that happens.
but I do want to say this, like, myself and the rest of the team are proud of you, and I really hope that you can be proud of yourself. Like, I think that's really something that I know I need to do a better job of letting people know that, because I'm not good at talking about how I feel. I think we can all agree. But I do think it's important, and I think that, I will try to do a better job of that as well, because yeah, it's how I feel about our team and our lifters is not based on how you perform on meet day. So.
Absolutely.
No, and I know that loud and clear. And I think the best thing that happened was the conversation a couple of nights after the meet, when just you and I had that opportunity just to talk.
Yeah.
And you jokingly even said, well, that was a great night of lifting, and I don't think I ever touched the barbell.
Oh, you did one warm up set with the empty bar, and then
I did one.
Yeah.
And then it kind of just went into therapy session from there.
Mhm.
But I think both you and I talked, I mean, that conversation, I needed. I'm not gonna say we both, I needed that. And a lot of what we've just talked about here was very at that moment was a lot more raw. So it was a lot harder to get through that conversation on that day. But I also think my headspace would be completely different had we not gotten down, and you pretty much said right in the beginning, it's just you and I, so let every emotion out, and pretty much we did.
And every expletive word. Need to start a list.
There was a couple in there.
Yeah, but again, and that's okay too. Like I think that's the whole point, is like all of those things are okay to a point. And I even told you, like, so that conversation we had was Wednesday night a week ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey, you have till midnight, and then we start over with a fresh mindset Thursday morning. I think it's important to have a space for that frustration and stuff like that. But at a point, you got to flip that switch and move on, because you can dwell on it way too long and not be productive at that point. So I think you did a really good job with that, flipping the switch and
well, because I promised you a picture at 5 a.m. and I believe I got it in your. Yeah, I think I sent it to you at like 5:02.
I woke up to a picture on Thursday morning, of you smiling. So that was your proof that you've hit the reset button.
Yes.
Oh.
So I promised that I was going to do that.
Yep. Promise kept.
Promise kept.
Cool.
And then you still made me do squats tonight. So.
Yep. Yep.
Embrace the squats. You must love it.
Exactly.
I have a very, very big love-hate relationship with squats. I love to hate them.
I've heard this a few times before. Yeah. Yep. I get it. It's the hardest of the lifts.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Want to move on, Laura?
Let's move it on.
Okay.
Music.
Yep. So we are doing the top 5 movie soundtracks as our next tournament. So here's the thing. I'm trying to make my life easier. So I created a Google form to submit your official list. So we will not be accepting any top 5 list that is not submitted in the Google form. So to find the Google form, you can go to Team Roar Instagram or the PL Ballads podcast Instagram, and the link is in the bio. So you have until February 14th to submit your top 5 movie soundtracks to be entered into the tournament, and the winner of that tournament will get a prize. TBD, we don't know what it is yet, but it's going to be good.
And these are not just 80s soundtracks. These are from any point of time.
Yep.
I would just caveat it with, I don't think it should count to say, like Cats. Cats is not a movie soundtrack. It was made into a movie at some point, but Cats, Josh, no.
What are you saying Josh for?
Because I knew that Cats is your jam.
It's my jam, huh?
Totally.
Well, all right. Well, I'll start over.
Yes. No Cats, Josh.
Yeah. So
I think I've got some good ones. I'm cooking up a list.
Come at me, bro. I have a few that I've got on my list that are not probably going to be that popular, but I think they're a great soundtrack. There's just maybe so there's some movies that are not really good movies that have awesome soundtracks. And I think those are going to be the keys to victory.
Yeah.
All
right. I'm talking shit. I'm taking you down already.
Yeah, I know. We're going to feel like the first ones out,
probably
like I was the first couple ones, but anyway.
So you're going to make me submit a Google sheet?
Yeah.
Google spreadsheet.
Yeah. Cause we're going to use that to talk about them, because so here's the thing. You can, for each number you put, there's a section where you can defend your reasoning for you putting that movie down. So we're literally, when we do the podcast, we're just going to pull up the spreadsheet and go down the list. It'll be much easier.
Have your reasoning thought about and justified, and you're putting that in there too?
Oh yeah.
Reason. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, that's next level. You got to think
next
first.
level. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you don't have to. You can half-ass it if you want, but some of us are going to put in effort.
Full ass. Come on, you should full ass it.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. All right. So we're submitting it via a Google form by the 14th.
Yep.
And
Valentine's Day is the deadline. Perfect.
All right, let's go into the powerlifting situation. So here you go, Josh. Bum, bum, bum. You plan to compete at nationals on Friday in full power. You also have a good chance to win at bench nationals on Wednesday. Full power is your priority, but you really want to do bench only as well and try to earn both your pro card and your pro bench card. Do you enter only one event or both, and why?
Well, I would never be in this situation because my bench is the worst of my three. But if I was, I think I would probably enter both because so when Wednesday is 2 days before your full power meet. And if you're doing a bench only meet, you're probably not taxing yourself that much. The only concern I would have is if you're really trying to make weight and you're doing a hard weight cut. I don't know that I would do that. I would probably just lift it wherever I weighed for the bench only. But a lot of times, with our typical peaking programs, we're typically benching 2 days before the meet anyway. So we could either, just kind of not go all out and still try to get that top two to get the pro card, the bench pro card, or go all out and just, see how it works for you. But I don't think, and the reason this came up is because this is an actual situation that is going to happen for people at nationals this year, because the bench is earlier in the week and the full power is later in the week. So people have the opportunity to do both at the same event. But yeah, I think, I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's interesting to me. And I think I would like to see a few people do this.
I would agree with that as well. I would still do the bench only. Because my bench is probably my weakest lift too. But also as an equipped lifter, a lot of it is about adjusting the shirt right and having that dialed in. And it kind of gives you a little bit of practice to make sure you're dialed in for the full power. So in a way, it kind of gives you an advantage, and it doesn't tax your central nervous system as much as a raw event would. Now, is this raw nationals or is nationals
this is
combined
both.
now?
It's
Okay.
combined. So it's raw and equipped, bench only and full power.
Wow. So as an equipped lifter, I'd be full on. As a raw lifter, I'd probably still be full on.
Yeah. Good distinction there.
There you go.
Cindi, what do you think? Putting you on the spot here.
I'd probably want to do it. Being a lifter, I'm kind of in agreement. If I've got a couple of days and knowing that I can probably make bigger gains with squat and with deadlift versus bench, I'd probably say I'd try going for both of them.
Gotcha.
And you're competitive enough. So, I mean, just the thought of being able to do it, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Why not?
Cool. So we have a unanimous decision. Should do it.
So here's another scenario, just to devil's advocate.
Okay.
So say you're competing at a meet in the Arnold, and you're doing full power and equipped at the Arnold. And then there's also a squat challenge in the same week. Do you do both?
Stop it. Yes, you do both. Especially, so here's the thing. You got to look at what's your priority. So if the full power meet is your priority, then doing anything that's going to jeopardize that is probably not a good idea. And if it was a deadlift, let's just say the squat challenge was before the full power meet, I would say absolutely not. If your goal is to do the best at the full power meet. But like in this situation, the actual situation, where bench is first, bench is not going to tax you that much. So I don't think it's a bad idea. Now, if it was like a deadlift meet 2 days before a full power meet, I would probably say no, not to do that. But I think you're safe with bench. And, I kind of look at it too. Like if you're already there and you're qualified or invited to do the squat challenge, it's kind of like, yeah, you might not be able to do your best at that, but that's for fun. That's not really
icing on the cake.
Yeah, that's just a fun event to do. And it's not like there's records on the line or qualifying for anything else on the line at that point. That's just for fun. So
Right.
And worst case scenario, let's just say you are super sore day of, you just, don't do it. But I would say, definitely do it if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, I would agree. Just YOLO, you only live once, and to compete at the Arnold in 2 events, well, that'd be so cool.
Yeah.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Agreed.
Of course, with the timing being
Yeah.
correct.
Right.
They can't be full powers first.
They can't be going on at the same time.
Right.
Although I
That
can't
would be
remember,
awkward.
I can't remember who it was, but somebody did do that. Somebody did I think it was the raw challenge and the pro deadlift. I think it was, or maybe it was, but they ended up they had to basically run across the ballroom to do like their opening squat while they were in the middle of their deadlift challenge or something like that. It was really crazy. I can't remember who that was, but it was, I definitely remember that happening, and everybody's like, holy crap, that's crazy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. There you go.
All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there, but, definitely submit your top 5 list to us. Instagram bio, link in the bio. Man, I'm awesome at this. Send that to us by February 14th. We will get the tournament going. We already got, we have everybody that has submitted a list so far is a new list sender inner.
Wow.
So we're going to have,
we actually have listeners. This is weird.
yeah. So we either have listeners, I posted it on social media. So maybe people just saw it on social media and they don't actually listen. But they're going to have to listen if they want to find out if they move on to the next round or not. So,
right. Or it could be a bot just sending in.
Well, it's real people.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
They say they're real.
They say they're real. You're not real to me.
We don't know.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And Cindi, again, we do appreciate you coming on and kind of talking and opening up about, your experience and just some of the, thoughts, feelings, et cetera. Cause I do think that's something that we need to, both as a team and just, I think in the sport as a whole, talk about more and not put such expectations and I guess self-value on performance, I think. So.
No, I appreciate it. And the opportunity to talk. So
cool.
It was cool.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that does it for us. We will catch you next week. Later.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.